So, I gotta tell you something. It's gonna be a 3 minute long video, but stick with me on this one. So, if you're playing Project Gotham Racing 2, and you see the music right there in the main menu, but it gets much more simple than this. I just looked up on Wikipedia, and the game Project Gotham Racing has a total of 12 different stations. 5 of them are real, in real cities. Like, I'm in I'm in San Francisco right now, and there's only one real station there. And that real station, of course, turns out to be Live 105, which is San Francisco's new rock alternative. But that's not the only real station in there, because I have 4 more to show you. Next, we got Hot 97 in New York. Back then it was blazing hip hop and R&B, but now it's New York's #1 for hip hop. Then we have 2 real radio stations in London. First being 95.8 Capital FM, which is London's #1 hit music station. And then we have XFM 104.9, which is now Radio X. Then we head to Tokyo and we see Inner FM. Back then it was 76.1, but then it changed the frequency in 2015 to 89.7. So that's the 5 real stations in Project Gotham Racing. But I'm going to show you some 7 made-up ones for the game. If we head back to San Francisco, we have Bump FM, which is hip-hop in San Francisco. Then we have Damage Radio. I know you can't see the radio because there's the 3 dots in it. In New York, E Radio and Gotham Radio 108.8. Again, no radio there because of the 3 dots. There's only one made-up station in London, which is Digital FM. So finally we get to see FM there in Tokyo, in which there are 2 made-up stations. We have Volcano FM, which is hard rock, and Fresh FM, which is all of Tokyo's hip-hop. So now you know that there are 5 real stations and 7 made-up stations in Project Gotham Racing. So, I guess there are some artists there like Saliva, The Chemical Brothers, Scapegoat Wax, Eve 6, and many more. Should I do Project Gotham Racing 2 radio stations? Better let me know. Since you guys liked my Project Gotham Racing radio stations video, how about I decide to make a video about the radio stations in Project Gotham Racing 2? So since this is a Project Gotham Racing 2 radio stations video, I think I'm decided to go with a 2-parter for this one, or 3 if you like. Have you ever wondered if you're playing Project Gotham Racing 2 and you hear a song on the radio that is actually real? Well, that's what the guys at Bizarre Creations decided to go to a whole new level. There are tens of more cities in the sequel. And with more cities comes with more radio stations. So since there are 2 US cities in Project Gotham Racing 2 again, they decided to add Washington, D.C. and Chicago, Illinois in there. And so I'm in Washington, D.C. right now, and it turns out there are 3 actual radio stations there. That's right, you are seeing it correctly. And just ignore the Alpine branded stereo there. If we go there, there are 3 actual stations. First, there's WPGC 95.5, which is hosted by DJ Flex, of course. Then we have Hot 99.5, which is Washington, D.C.'s #1 hit music station, which is still alive to this day. And there we have DC 101, hosted by Elliot of Elliot in the Morning. That is so crazy, having Elliot, LBD, and DJ Flex in Project Gotham Racing 2 is so beyond me. And believe it or not, Chicago has its own 2 real radio stations in there. And one's just made up for the game. And I'll show it to you right now. Yes, you are seeing it correct. We're in Chicago, and there's only 2 real radio stations. which is Power 92, hosted by the Chocolate Jocks, which plays number 1 in the streets. Then we have Q101, hosted by Sludge of the Sludge Nation, which turns out to be an actual alternative station. And then we have one made-up station that plays dance, electronica, trance, all kinds of stuff. Frequency FM, hosted by Fly Daddy, which it sounds like an odd nickname if you ask me. So that's part 1 of the Project Gotham Racing 2 radio stations in the United States. Should part 2 be about Australia, Japan, or Europe? Well, leave your thoughts in the comments, and I'll get back to it as soon as I can. So since you guys liked the first part of the Project Gotham 2 radio stations in the US, let's take a trip to Europe this time. So here we are in Edinburgh, Scotland, and we have 3 real radio stations. First one is Beat 106, which is a rock and dance station, but it plays only rock. And then we have 97.3 Fourth One, but there are 2 parts of Fourth One. One is just plays all the hits with Matthew Smith, and one that plays dance and electronica with Tom Wilson. Next up, we're in Barcelona, Spain. First, we have Alternativo FM, which is an alternative station, either rock or pop. Then we have G-Spy FM, which is rock and electronica. And then we have Cadena LA, which is Spanish, for those of you who don't know. Next, we're heading to Florence, Italy, where we have Rocketari Radio, No Work Radio, and also Radio Y, or Radio Ipsilo, which, you know, I'm part Italian, of course. Next, we're in Stockholm, Sweden, where we have the only station there, which is Powerhead Radio, Stockholm's best dance and R&B. Stocktown Radio, which is very impressive, if you ask me. And then we have Gymnastics Swobokwi Rock Klassiker. Sorry, my Swedish is not that good. Next, we're the dangerous country of all, Russia. This time, Moscow. Here we have Radio Nashik Orlitz, Dynamite Frem, which is pretty good Russian if you ask me. And then we have Radio Otra. And finally, we've come to the real course of all, home of the 24-hour racing events, the Nürburgring in Germany, where we have 3 stations there. First is Hitradio LPA 1. Almost got it with my German. Radio Sunshine, or Sunshine Live. And then we have Rockline Radio. If my German is good, that's okay. So that's part 2 of the radio stations in Project Gotham Racing 2. Should part 3 be about across Asia or Australia? You better let me know in the comments, and I'll get to it as soon as I can. So since you guys liked part 2 of the Project Gotham Racing 2 radio stations, let's make part 3 about Asia this time. So since we're covering Asia in this video, there are actually 2 countries that are there in the game. One is China, and one is in Japan. So let's make this about 2 cities, which are Hong Kong and Yokohama. The first stop on our trip is Hong Kong, China. Now, it could be both beautiful and dangerous, but I'll consider it beautiful from now on. So, we have 3 radio stations in Hong Kong. First is Infinity Speed. Then we have Star Dream, which everyone could be dreaming to become a superstar. If that's the case, I don't know. Then we have City Beat, which is pretty amazing, by the way. And mind you, now that we're in Yokohama, there are 3 parts of the same radio station. 3 parts. So you better be ready. That's right. You are seeing it correctly. The only radio station in Yokohama is FM Yokohama 84.7. But in this game, there are 3 different parts of FM Yokohama. First we have Boom Street. Then we have Escape Zone, which very fascinating. And then last we have FM Yokohama Seaside Cruising. Seaside Cruising? What does that name mean? Well, we're not so sure exactly, but we'll find out soon enough. So that's part 3 of the radio stations in Project Gotham Racing 2 covering Asia. That being Hong Kong, China, and Yokohama, Japan. For my next video, it's going to be the last part of the Project Gotham Racing 2 radio station series. And the next one is going to be covering Sydney, Australia. And I know a TikTok friend that actually lives in Australia. So I will give a shout out to him in my next video. Who knows? So stay tuned for that, and I will be in touch. Alright, I saved this best for last, because this is the last part of the Project Gotham Racing 2 radio stations video. And I tagged a special someone that lives in Australia down there. And we're covering Australia today. And just ignore all the red hair dye. My mom just got it remade, so it's all good though. So since we're covering Australia, we're talking about a city that is most famous for tourism. I am of course talking about Sydney. So since we're covering Sydney, Australia in this video, there are 3 real radio stations that I'd like to show you now. First up, we have Nova 969, which is hosted by Jimmy Z, which plays all of hip-hop and electronica. Then we have 104.1 Today FM, hosted by Jason the Soul Man Soul. And then we have 104.9 Triple M, hosted by Dino, which plays Sydney's only rock. And you wonder why the name Triple M comes from. Well, it comes from 3M's themselves, because it's MMM. And there are a lot of Triple M's around Australia, but we're sticking with this for Sydney for now. And that is it. That is the whole series of every radio station in Project Gotham Racing 1 and Project Gotham Racing 2. So I hope you enjoyed this series, as you know I did. I enjoy this series because not every video game has licensed music with radio stations at all. That's for sure.